And I am going to share my screen. Today, that one is tough. Okay, it is. Okay, here we go. Okay. Is this screen big enough for you guys? Oh, did I just get out of it? Oh, good. It is. You can see it. Okay. If you need me to expand it or blow it up, I put some notes today, so that's why I didn't do it. Let me just go up and we'll start in 1 second. Okay. You know, one of these days I will figure out a more professional way to make sure that I start these off right. You know, all these professional, oh, welcome to this session of this. I'm not there yet, guys. Sorry. Okay, so here we go. We're going to review, and I call this unit the keys to reading, because in this 6 weeks, we're going to go over a number of things that I feel help speed you from going from knowing what the alphabet is to being able to read a word. And once you can start to sound out words, you can also start to break out the pieces of the words. So if you're reading your Old Testament or the Torah, whatever you're reading, and you want to know what it means, you can actually break things in pieces at a rudimentary level in the beginning and figure out what the word means. You'll still need lots of help, but you'll be able to be like, oh, this means something, this means something. And so you might not know it all, but you might know, like, after we're done with this 6 weeks, you'll know, do they mean this is and love? Or does this mean with love? Or does this mean, what was I going to say? We all are in love. So you're going to learn some of those things. So here we go. Hebrew is read right to left. The Hebrew alphabet has 22 letters. And when I mean letters, especially Ramon, sorry if you haven't had this, I just mean the consonants. We do not count vowels because vowels are what we call markings or nakud. They're just dashes and dots. They're not true letters. So when you're reading Hebrew, you're talking about reading letters, okay? The Hebrew letters are nearly always pronounced the same. And so how that means is in English, there are some words that change if something happens to it. And I had a couple of good words and can't remember it right now. But in Hebrew, if you have, let me see. Okay, like kit, K-I-T. Kit is always, it's going to be kit, but add an E at the end. And it is going to be kite, right? In Hebrew, the K-I-T is going to be pronounced the same. Everything's pronounced the same. So that E at the end wouldn't do much to it, or it wouldn't work. Actually, that's a bad example because it wouldn't work. It doesn't change. So if you learn that this is this sound and this is this sound, it doesn't change the meaning of the word. And I will show you examples. When you get to words, it'll make more sense. It's possible to learn Hebrew, to read Hebrew without knowing the meanings of the words. In English, you have to know what the words mean to be able to read. In Hebrew, you can read and not know a single thing. In fact, kind of one sad part about this in Hebrew is that today in Hebrew schools, our children often don't learn what their readings mean that they learn, because you have to read the Torah to be able to have your bar bat mitzvah, that ceremony when you're 13. So they can read Hebrew, but if you asked them what any of it meant, they wouldn't know, because that they usually learn later, and most kids leave Hebrew school before they learn what the meanings are. But that's good in a way, because once you start to be able to read these words, then you can start to break the words apart, and then you can work on meanings. So then you don't feel like, oh, I'm saying this word the wrong way. You're not. You're saying it the correct way, And now you just have to figure out and get the meaning to stick with the word that you're saying. So that's a plus for older adults. It's a negative for kids. Again, I'm teaching you the Sephardic pronunciations and what's typically taught in Israel today, and what is taught in modern schools today. This is biblical Hebrew, not modern Hebrew. However, one quick example that I'll remind you of, we talked about the letter He and Het. Het is a gutter. We'll talk about it. It comes from the back. However, in Israel, you will hardly ever hear an Israeli say Het. It's going to sound very close to that He, very, very similar. So for the most part, though, we stay very close to it. Some people teach in biblical Hebrew. Some schools, seminaries still teach Vav is Wa. We don't teach that anymore. So I don't know that if they did that an extended period of time or if that was a medieval thing, but we do not teach that anymore. The other thing about letters in Hebrew, again, I'm reminding you, there are no uppercase letters and there are no lowercase letters. The only difference between one letter and the other could be if one was a printed or block script, like this is a block script right here, or if it's a cursive form, like cursive handwriting. I don't know if any of you guys learned that in school. I'm old enough that we had to learn that. So there's no uppercase or no lowercase letters. Okay, so let's take a look at the letters. When I teach letters, I teach by frequency. So these are, hold on, let me get Donald in here. Admit, there we go. Okay. Welcome, Donald. Okay, here is, okay. Oh, where am I at? Okay, so we teach according to frequency. So the first 5 letters that we learned were Mem, Tav, He, Aleph, and Nun. And the reason why we learn those first is because most of the letters have one of these in it, okay? And again, these are 22 letters. These are all letters. They're all consonants. And the one fact I don't think I told you last time that I'm adding this time in this review is that later on we'll find out that all the letters also have numbers attached to them. And that is called gematria. And you may have heard that some spiritual practices put numbers to letters. Okay, here's the next set. We have Bet, Kaf, Ket, Vav, and final Nun. So one thing I want to talk about is that final Nun is one example of how a few letters have a different form when they're at the end of a word. So the final Nun kind of sits, let's see, here's the Nun right here. Here's the Nun right here. It looks like it sits on the line. And then the final Nun right here at the very end unfolds and just goes down below the line. So we'll talk again about finals, and it's important to know that the final letters, one thing we'll talk about too, and I'll say it now, is they don't usually have vowels underneath them because they are the very end of the word, okay? The other thing is letters can be silent, vowel holders, or pronounced. So we're going to talk later on how Vav is what we call a vowel holder. So when we pronounce it, when we say pronounced, we mean simply that. Vav can be V, like Victor, or it can be a letter O, and we'll explain that later again. So we have Het, Vav, final Nun. The thing that you see right here are 2 letters that have dots in them, okay? Now, the first class hasn't learned the name, but today they are going to learn the name. These dots are called Dagesh Kal, okay? And these dots can change the way the letter sounds. So for instance, this letter is Bet. The name of it is Bet, and the sound of it is how it starts. So B for Bet, just like B. If I were to take that dot out, it would be a vet, and we'll see the vet later on. So the dot makes it so the letter is pronounced harder, b, b, rather than v, v. So when I said up here, I think I said here that Hebrew letters are nearly always pronounced the same. The only difference they have is when you have a vowel like this that's pronounced harder and softer. So in English, they would give you a rule like sometimes nay or let's see, nay or I don't know what would be a G word. I don't know. My words aren't coming tonight. But nay is a soft G. Oh, but if G was in the front like goat, it would be hard. That's all this is. The difference is they put a dot in those to say which ones need to be hard and just which ones need to be soft. This cough is cough. It's got a little dot in it, and think about is that when you have a dot too, you got to say the thing hard enough to spit it out. So I did explain to you that they were called plosives. You didn't need to know that name, plosive, cough, or bet. Those are plosives, and it only means that you got to use like more air. So if you were to go, you can feel the air hit your hand. So bet, cough. So you would feel the air hit your hand versus the cough. You don't feel the air hit your hand. So that's how you know whether you're hitting that hard enough or not. Okay. The other thing is some letters, and we're going to definitely talk about this today. Some letters are what we call look-alike letters. And the only reason why I say that is because when you start to read, you start to sound out words. You're going to be like Madison. This is a cough. And I'm going to be, nope, this is a bet. This first one is a bet. Or I might hold up my hand like this because this is what a cough looks like to try to hint. And you might be confused and think it's a bet. That's okay. What we are really going to look at this next 6 weeks is detail. So for instance, this bet, this line down here is straight on. There's no that line straights. It sits on there. It's bold. It sits on the line. There's no curves. Where cough looks like a C, it's curved a little. So what is the details that we need to learn so that we know the words? In fact, right here, het, there's no break in here. There's another letter that we learned here, hey, where there is a break. And so we'll talk, we'll have another slide that shows the look-alike letters together. When we teach letters, we tend to not teach them together, so you learn the letter. And then now we show them back to you next to each other so we can look at the detail. And that's what we're going to do. So I have a question. Is anyone brave enough to read the first line here? Does anybody want to try it?
I'll do it.
Okay.
Mem, Tav, Aleph, Hey, Nun.
Okay. Naomi, do you want to read the second line?
Yes. Chesh, Lamed, Dalet, Sin, Shin, final, Mem.
Perfect. Okay. And that's exactly the way to say it for final mem. And I have to tell you, your Resh is perfect Israeli again. I think I've told you that before. Okay. So here we go. We have a Resh, Lamed, Dalet, Shin, and final mem, like we said. Okay. And so we're talking about this final letters. And I believe it was Luis last week who must have been studying. And he had said, well, are these safits? Yes. The final and safit mean the same thing. It's just one is a more technical term and one is the English translation to mean safit. So final and final and safit are the same. Now, about these letters, the letter is shaped different. Okay, so like final mem, if we look at the mem up here, let's see, didn't we have, yeah. Here's the mem right here. There was a hole here, right? and a little bit different. This is the mountain right here. And then down here is the mem. It's a little bit different. They took away the mountain, they folded it to make it together, and they closed the bottom. So I don't, whatever way, I use really different ways too. As you know, as everyone else knows, to describe things, because I'm hoping one of them sticks and resonates with you. Or if you find your way to figure out that this is mem and this is mem Sophie. But the one thing I want to show you is, look, this mem has a hard bottom, right? This mem has a hard bottom. The main characteristics of the letter will stay the same. So that's important. Okay. But it will always sound the same. M. Whether it's a mem or a m, it'll sound the same. Okay. Now, we showed letters with dots in the middle, right? We showed the letters with the ones that had the dot right here, the dagesh kal. Okay. Well, we have another dagesh here. Okay. The dagesh kal, but it's on top. On this letter, which is shin, and it looks like a crown. And a lot of people know this one because it's on the dreidel. And it's one of the ones that they recognize from the dreidel at Hanukkah time. So this dot moves from this side, as you can see it now, and then goes to this side. So I actually I have it backwards. It should be over here. That should be shin. And then sin is there. She. Yeah. Okay. So we have Dalit, and that's just another example of a letter that kind of looks like another letter, but you just got to watch the details. Lamed and Resh there. So those are some more consonants, and we're getting in already. These are kind of in the middle. Okay, here's two more with the dagesh kal in it, pay and fey. So some people say pay is the hard P and fey is like phone, like PH. But I don't necessarily teach it that way, because think about it. You could spell phone, F-O-N-E. If you never learned the word phone and someone said F-O-N-E, that's a phone, you would be like, okay, in English, that makes perfect sense. So don't worry if you're studying something and you're like, it says phone, P-H-O-N-E. It's just an F sound. It's a plain F sound. There's nothing fancy about it. Samic. Here's the other one. Hebrew can have more than one letter that makes a similar sound, and Samic is one of those. So if we go back, we just learned one, right? Shin, and then we'll learn sin that has an S. So it's a little bit different, but pretty much the same as Samic. It all makes that S sound. So sin and Samic are exactly the same S sounds. Gimel is your hard G sound. We only have hard G sounds in Hebrew. We don't have any other way. It's Gimel, and that's it. So there's no, like I said, giraffe, a soft one, or giraffe. It's just G. So like Higianu. It's the G, the Hig, the G would be the hard G. And this is our Z sound, our Zion, okay? And just to remind you that the reason why this is that way, we've got some of these markers, is because Hebrew is compact, efficient, and they jam everything in a word that you can get. So everything you need to know about the word, except for when it's a direct object, and we'll talk about that later, it's in the word. You don't have to go looking for a whole bunch of stuff to figure out what the word means. So when we expand in the next couple of weeks and we start to look at a sentence from the Bible in Hebrew, a lot of times we're going to know how to translate that sentence, because we're going to know what that word means. That word's going to tell us who or how they're doing it, or which people they're talking about. It's going to tell you those things for the most part. You do need the rest of the sentence, but not so much as in English, where you need the whole sentence and what all the words mean to know what it's saying. It's very compact and very efficient. Okay, so we have iron, tet, vet. That was like our B. Remember, our bet had the ball, our Dagesh call in it, and now it's vet, and yod, and final ak. So in special cases like the yod, okay, we didn't talk about this before, the yod can actually be part of a vowel and change the sound of that vowel. It can lengthen the vowel. It can turn the vowel like into a straight I, like the letter I in English. And then we have sometimes things that we call fake finals. Okay. And remember, I told you that at the very end of the word, there's usually never vowels at the end of a word. And when you have a final letter, there's basically never vowels at the end of a final. As in Hebrew, there are always exceptions to everything. And so in this case, this is the final that has a vowel underneath it. The final ak is also a situation about the Hebrew, how we're teaching the Hebrew language is changing. So I don't know if anyone's ever heard someone talk about the original book of the Bible and they tell you the story of Noah. And they may have called, or someone may be teaching, as they learned in seminary, to say Noach. And so we're finding in some different manuscripts and some different things that maybe that wasn't the case. Maybe it was really Noah. And so I'm just saying that we have this fake final and it makes the ak sound. And when you'll see a word, you'll know it. But things are changing. And the one thing that I did explain before, and I'll say it again, is that we are learning that there are certain groups of people like the Yemenite people who actually have been speaking almost the closest dialect to actually what was spoken during the times of the Bible. So we are learning that through these languages that are still here today, that we have maybe been saying a few things wrong, or that some of the things that we thought were correct. And this is one of the things, this final ak, it's going to probably start to go away soon. Okay, so we have our next letters, kuf, sin. Remember I showed you that was sin before. Shin is on this side. Sin is on this side. I used to remember it and is that if you're telling a kid to be quiet, the S sound is this way. And then if I were to move it quick, the SH sound is there. So if you set the letter together, the dots on top would say sh. It would say sh, S and H, because this stands for S alone and this stands for H. That's the way it makes sense to me. I don't know what makes sense to you. One of my Hebrew students once told me that she remembers it, that the sun comes up one way and then set the other way, but now I can't remember if it was the sun, what does it rise in the east and set with the west? So for me it was backwards. So maybe she was one of my Japanese students, so I don't know. I'm just saying that however you remember it, we need to know that this side is an S sound and that side is a sh sound. The other thing you need to know is that there are way more shs, sh's in the Hebrew than there are sins. So because the actual sin letter shin is way up here, and now we are way down here. Okay. This is kaf. We saw the other one with the K, with the dot in it, but this is not so hard. It's not the kaf, it's the kaf, because it has no dot. Okay. Then we have sadi, and sadi. Some people have said that it's like bended knee. Like if you look at it on this side, there's a couple different ways to look at this one because this one's challenging. Some people say if you look at this and this is a mom or a dad on their knees and the kids looking at you, it's like you got your infant on your knees looking at each other. That's sadi. One time we were talking, just let's use that one for today. There's a bunch of different ways, and you will find people online have also different ways to explain it. Whichever way helps you remember the word, the letter is important. So the one thing that I'm going to say is Sadi is an example of how the letters again are pronounced differently. Or if you're in New York and you're Ashkenazi, if you're in America in general, and if you're in Israel. So sometimes people make the letter Sadi TS like tss, tss, kind of like a T and a snake sound. Tss, tss. And sometimes people do more of a tss, tss. So it's we teach TS because that's more kind of what they're teaching now. So Sadi, just like the name Sadi, you can tell where people are in the world by how they pronounce their Hebrew. So there you go. So those are a lot of facts. Okay, now, does somebody want to try and read this top line of the Aleph Bet right here? This one on the right. Does anyone want to give it a try?
Sure.
Okay, go ahead.
Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vov.
Okay, great. Now, does someone want to try to read the second line over here that's not on, that's in the handwriting one?
Het, Tet,
Yep.
Yud,
Yep.
Bet,
Mm-hmm.
Vet,
Yep.
Dalet, Lamed, and Mem.
Okay. So this one is
Oh.
not a Dalet.
Oh, I see what it is. Yeah, it's below the line. So it's
Yeah.
it's a final. Oh well, it's a final something.
It is. It's a final het.
A final
So,
het.
yeah. Okay. So when you write Hebrew, I brought this one out because this is in your Google Classroom. So if you haven't gotten to the very first couple weeks, I'll go back down there. I've put some resources, and these are just two of your charts. The reason why I did this is because remember how I said I don't want you to go online and sing the Aleph Bet, because I really want you to remember the letters. Okay, at this point, if you want to try it, you can. You have a chart now because you've learned a lot of letters, but you have to be careful because some charts don't have things exactly in the correct way. So that's a final cough. Did I say final het? I meant a final cough. Sorry. So we have Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zion, Het, Tet, Yud, Kaf, Kaf, final cough, Lamed, Mem, final Mem, Noon, final Noon, Samik, Ayin, Pei, Fe, final Fe, Zadi, final Zadi, Kuf, Resh, Shin, Sin, Tav, and Tav. Okay, does someone notice something about the Tavs down below? Do you notice how the Tavs have, this one has a dot and this one has a dot? Okay. So the two Tavs have dots, but for all intents and purposes, they sound exactly the same. There is some older school things that people used to pronounce things differently. And then, like I said, I did mention that when we talked about the old Aleph, when we talked about stuff like that. And I'm not going to go back into it. So I encourage you, unless you want to go through it at the end of the session. But what I encourage you to take a look and talk about that, because it's almost the same as the Aleph. How they did it back then, we don't know exactly. We're learning more, as I mentioned, using the Yemeni language, which is the closest Semitic language to biblical Hebrew, or an offshoot of the Semitic language, of the biblical Hebrew language that they spoke back then. And so there was a dot. The dot made a difference, and now today the dot doesn't make a difference. Unless it's
Question.
grammatically. Did
You
someone
say-
have a question?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
With regard to the Yemeni language, there are, I don't know how many different languages in Yemen, and how many different communities. But there's a Jewish community, very small now, because the bulk of them left early on in 50s or 60s. So when you say this is from the Yemeni language, the Yemeni language is spoken by the Houthis, for example. Doesn't sound anything like Hebrew, does it?
Right. No, this is the Yemenite Hebrew language. Sorry. The actual that tribe, the tribes of people that they have been trying to, or they did try to rescue, and then we in Israel kind of treated them badly, and now we're doing better, I believe. But we're working with those people who speak the Yemeni version of Hebrew, because that Semitic version of Hebrew, I don't even want to say Hebrew because it's inaccurate, but that's why I say the Yemeni language, but I really mean the Yemeni Hebrew language, the Yemeni Semitic Hebrew language. Let me put it that way. I'm not that specifically accurate, but that's the version that we're learning a lot about, because when they finally sat down and studied and worked with the Yemenite population, that were able to leave, and those that made it to Israel, they're learning where they were in the language tree and realizing that they were still speaking this language in the way that it was nearly spoken in biblical times. So one day, if I think of it, or if I find something in my studies, I will put together a little sheet. There's a little cute, I've seen something like that, and I would fix it up, a little language chart sheet, to see where all those trees came in. And it's very fascinating about how we're learning about what ancient Hebrew would sound like. So I'll move on then. So here's your Hebrew alphabet. Here's all the letters. When you write it, this is what it's going to look like. It's not going to look really fancy. It's okay. This is what they print in books. This is what it looks like in the Torah. On the left is what it looks like when you and I write. It's still some days mine doesn't look any better. Actually, sometimes the stuff on the left looks better than my handwriting. So again, in your Google Classroom, I encourage you to spend some time writing the letters. If you're having a hard time, especially remembering this is a dalet, or remembering this is a kaf, or remembering this is a pei, writing it and seeing it and saying at the same time, when I used to be a psychologist, those three things together activate your brain very well. The only thing you could do more to activate it is if you could walk and write and talk and say it at the same time. But if you do the writing at the same time, you're walking and talking and say it, most of us are going to trip. So that's how that goes. Okay, let's go to finals now. Okay, so these are the ones that change form, but they don't change sound. And as you can see on the right of your screen here, most of the time, you know how I keep saying they unfold? Well, because if you see here's your final fe, okay? And your final fe, it's like they take the bottom of the letter and just fold it down. So fe goes this way, but then they take the thumb and then they fold it down and it makes it long. And these always go beyond the letter. So if we were reading from the Torah or something and you are not sure if this is a final, take a piece of paper and put it on your sheet, and anything that hangs down from that, the ends of those letters are finals if you're not sure. When I'm reading the Torah sometimes, it's tough because the original Torah is handwritten, and sometimes you can't tell whether someone brought it down far enough to make it a final or not. But remember, these finals always come at the end of the word. When you're reading regular block print like this stuff, you're going to know where the word ends. When I'm reading the Torah, I can't always tell where the words end because, again, one thing I didn't say again is Hebrew doesn't use punctuation. So it's hard if you're reading and there's no punctuation. Now, they put it in now for us, but they didn't have it then. So the final letters, here's final, there's Kaf, final Kaf, Sadi, final Sadi, Fe, final Fe. And again, all of these follow the rule that they unfold, okay? The tops always look somewhat the same, okay? They're very close to the same, but they unfold the bottom. Now, there's always exceptions in Hebrew, I like to say. And one of them is the final mem. It closes itself in. And remember, the final mem has a flat bottom. It's a hard rock mountain on a base and has a final bottom, unlike Samik that's round, and you'll see that later. And then this is a different kind of an exception. There's a final hey as well, but it's not final in that it changes or does anything. It's a final hey in that it's silent. So those are two exceptions. This would be what I'd call a fake final because it's still the same letter. It's still hey. It's just that we're not going to pronounce it. So one of the reasons why I'm giving you these charts, and in the next couple of weeks, these are charts that you're going to want to like maybe take this one and copy and paste it and put it into a notebook. Okay. I'm going to be giving you a lot of references that will help you in the beginning to take a look at things. So, in fact, we're going to see on the next slide. Here's all your final forms and soft beats together again. Haf, final Haf. Again, you see how they unfold. Sadi, final Sadi. Fe, final Fe. And then we have our Nun, final Nun. Okay. And our Mem, final Mem. Okay, those are the official 5 finals. And then I told you there's kind of a fake one because it's actually what we call a silent final. It's a final hey. Otherwise, all the words, whenever you get an N, it's going to be an N sound, whether it's this N or this N. The only word that changes is if hey is in the middle of the beginning of the word, it's going to be ha. In the beginning, it'd be H, A, H. And it just sounds like HA. So it's a blank H if we were using an English word as an example. So here's your finals. They're also called sophites. Again, it doesn't matter what you use, whether you say final form, final letter, letter sophite, final sophite, whatever. Okay. Was everybody okay so far? Or am I going too fast? Everyone okay? Okay, good. Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, so now this is where the details matter. And this is where it's going to save you time and frustration. Okay. These are your 6 lookalike letters. Okay. You may want to print this out, like cut and paste it and put a couple charts on one page. All I'm asking you to do is take a look at if these are confusing to you. Take a look and find the detail. For instance, this Vav is straight. Some people say it looks like a violin. I don't care what you use to make it, to remember it. But look at the difference in the Zion. The Zion has a head that's sitting on top. The Zion's head is, some people say Zion looks like a zipper. It doesn't matter. The Zion is on top, where the Vav, the top of it is actually in the letter. Okay, so, and the Vav is super straight. The Vav part is actually very straight. And look at the Zion. I can't do it with my hand or I'd break it, right? But the Zion has a curve in its, it has a curve in its body. So the details here matter, okay? The same thing with Resh and Dalet. Resh, a lot of times I will say to you, look at it. It's rounded. It's rounded. And then that's your cue that resh, the R, excuse me, is round. Dalet is the D sound. Sometimes people say it's like half a door, or like the door's open, or a doorway, the frame in the bottom. But look at, there's a dent in the door right here. There's a little dent. It's pushed in a little. The resh is rounded on the top and it's totally straight. Now, some people get the vav and the resh. That could be another lookalike pattern that people get confused of. But look at the difference. The vav is super short at the end. It's very short. The resh is a lot wider on the top. The top is wider. Okay. Part of these are because Hebrew is a compact and efficient alphabet, because it's a compact and efficient language. And so therefore, those little details in efficiency matter, because think about when you have the alphabet, the ABCs, A is this big word, B, C is easy, D is easy, E is this other big word. We have lots of big letters. Lots of big letters to write. If you'll notice when you're writing a lot of these Hebrew letters, they're pretty efficient. This is this. This is a little bit bigger of this. This is this with a this. This is this. This is this with a dot. They're very similar because it's efficient. So we have, so we have resh and vav. Sometimes people say those are lookalikes. What's the difference? And we just talked about that. Now, Samik and Mem is a big one. And Samik and Mem is really justifiable, because if you are not reading block print like this, sometimes it can be very confusing. But Samik is going to be some form of a circle shape. In fact, if you're writing it in cursive, I think Samik, this one has a half moon underneath it, but sometimes they just show it as a circle. Here, it kind of looks like a circle. So Samik is really, Samik has some kind of circle. Some people say it's a snake curled up on its tail and it's rounded. Mem is not. Mem is flat. So what's the detail that makes a difference? Well, the top kind of looks the similar. The bottom is flat and Samik is a circle, but Mem, you see, has got that little angle. So what is the detail that you're going to use and you're going to write down and remember to figure out how this is a Mem? The het and the hay. Again, the het is sealed all the way. Some people say het is like a house, in that the window is sealed. It looks like I don't know. Okay, I don't know what I was going to say. Sorry, guys. Where the hay has a hole in it. The hay has a hole in the side. You can look through. It's like a house, but it's got a window. So, or some people say this is a haystack. And anyway, so the hay, somehow, what is the detail? Well, the big detail here is exactly the same, except for there's a hole in it. If we stretch that shorter leg out, it would look exactly the same. So het has two standard sizes that look sides that look the same, and hay's got a hole in them. Okay. Sadi and ayin, those are very confusing. Sadi, if you look again, the way that I say it is there's a parent on their knees looking at the baby. And then ayin, there's a parent sitting down on a chair looking at their infant standing up. So smaller baby sitting with their toddler. So whatever way it works for you, but ayin has a curve on that left side, and ayin is shorter. Ayin also has an angle where sadi is again flat on the base. So find your detail and hang on to it. The same thing with kaf and vet. They have one circled, one has a circle like a C, and one has a flat base, and that's where you get your bet and vet from. It's got the base, it's flat. That is your that's your way. So those are the look-alike letters, and this is where people have a lot of challenge, is telling these ones apart. To continue is, and I actually made this mistake when I was teaching you guys. I feel really bad. Vav in final noon. I think in one of the screens I said it was final Vav. I don't know what I was thinking. It's final noon. So this Vav is shorter. Final noon has this little bit of dent. Remember I told you noon has a little bit of a, where's the noon at? Noon's got that little bit of a, noon is way up on the top, I think. Here we go. So see, noon has just a little tiny bit of arc there, just a little bit. It doesn't have a dent like Dalit, but it's got a little bit of arc. So the final noon, all it does is stretch out that bottom. It really, really just stretches out that bottom. But Vav can look somewhat like noon. If it does not go below the line, it is not a noon. A final noon has to be at the end of the word, and it has to go below the line because it's a final. The Vav never goes below the line, okay? And here is Het and Tav. This confuses people too. One of the ways to remember is look at the Kaf. The Kaf's got the little curvy legs, okay? The Tet has this little toe here. So those are the details. Those are the details that matter, okay? I know we're whipping through this. Okay. Like I said, I made all these because they're kind of like references for you when we move forward. These are silent letters. So Ramon, I feel bad because you're kind of getting the Cliff Notes version. These are the letters that don't make any sound. Aleph is here. Ayin is here. And Hey at the end of the word. Now, the difference between the two is that Aleph will be a vowel holder, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. Ayin will be a vowel holder, but Hey normally never has a vowel at the end. It's just Hey. So, closes out a word. So we'll talk about that more, but there's your silent letters, your letters that don't make a sound. Did they make a sound back in the old days? Absolutely. In fact, was kind of a guttural sound that we can't say anymore. We have no ability to say that. We've lost the ability to say that, which is why we're going to talk about it now. Okay. These are your gutturals. Okay. And the reason why I'm saying this is there's a couple rules here, but why I'm saying this is really because if you were to say Aleph, it'd be a breathy, like drinking a cup of water. I don't know, like a gulpy type. I can't even do it today. It's my throat, but it would have been a type of sound. Now it's not anything. And now some people try to replicate it, but don't even try. Because in biblical Hebrew today, it doesn't have any extra meaning. The ayin, this will carry a vowel, and this will carry a vowel. So when we talk about review our vowels next week, you'll see more with vowels on these. Okay. The Hey, again, the Hey is a guttural. It's just Hey. There's some rules about the gutturals, and that's why I gave you this together. So if I say it's a guttural, it does or doesn't do certain things. A chet is the same way, and so is a resh. And I love the way Naomi says her resh, and I'm going to pick on her today. I hope you don't mind, because the fact that one of the reasons why these gutturals can't do certain things, like they can't double, like you don't see in the Hebrew language, you don't see, if you saw the word starry in English, Starry, like that drink, starry. Okay, you would never see that in Hebrew because Naomi probably couldn't say the word starry and roll that R twice. That's because it's a guttural. It's not meant to be rolled twice, and so you don't need to double it. And so one of the reasons why I'm showing you this group is one of the things that's going to occur later on. I'm going to say this is a guttural. So what can't it do? Well, it can't double because you can't say a rolled R twice. Het, you can't put two hets together. Hey, if you put two H's together, it's just a H sound. Iron doesn't make a sound, right? And when it did, it was kind of a breathy, probably an A or a breathy AY sound. And you can't put no, you so if you did an aleph double, it'd be like, okay, well, that's just like you're panting on somebody, and we'd say, stop it, you're being creepy, right? Not really saying a letter. So they also prefer A vowels. So when you see these letters, if you don't know, if there's no vowel underneath it and you try it with an A, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be correct. Okay. And then there is something called a compound shava, and these all take a compound shava. And the reason why is because when we explain what a compound shava is, it's a shava with a vowel. And most of the time, those are A vowels. And we will talk about that with vowels. But I want you to know that this group is the gutturals. And so it's something that we'll refer back to again. And just know that they're in the gutturals. That's all you need to know, because when we talk about them, you'll know. Okay. I have 3. I'm running out of time, so I apologize if I'm going too fast. I have 3 special cases here that I need you to know about. Final cough, final ach, and yod. And we'll review this next time because I'm not going to give it good service. But final cough, you'll see it a lot of times with this kamatz at the end, a special symbol. This is the final ach we've already talked about. And then you'll have a Y, and the Y will do things to vowels. And we'll talk about that too when we get to the vowels. But these are what I call special cases. Okay, we talked about these already. So the plosive hard original sound, the plosive was, the dot was the original sound. So P, V, or P, B, she, and key were the original sounds. P, V, she, and key. These were the original sounds. When language evolved, as all languages do, they needed a softer sound. And so what they ended up doing is, hey, how do we tell the difference? Let's do a dot. In the 10th century, we figured out let's do the dot when it's the hard one, and let's not do a dot when it's the other one. Or let's move the dot. Other than the only way you would know it when you were learning back in the 9th and 10th centuries, the rabbi would yell at you because you did it wrong. Okay, let's do. Okay, we are out of time. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to stop here and work on vowels later. We'll start vowels next week. But one thing I did want to give you is I wanted to start to have you take a look at vocabulary. And so we won't do too much with it today, but here's a list of 10 words. And these are the words for this week. So av, echad, ani, ata, hu, ze, Yisrael, Melech, Moshe, and An. So these are our first set of 10 words. They have a lot to do with what we've learned, and they're all almost one syllable except for a couple. And they have stuff that we need to discuss. So if you are interested in learning vocabulary, some of you may be and some of you aren't. This is the first 10 words. So whether you want to try to cut and paste this one, or I don't know how you want to do it, but there's your words. Take a look at it. Find with learning vocabulary, it helps that I take a look at it every day for a couple minutes, literally every day, and then start to eliminate ones as I know them. You could take this and cut it in strips if you want to make really fast and vocabulary strips rather than flashcards. So that's just the way there. Now, I am going to stop sharing and I'm going to stop recording. Okay.